you know? And she goes, I do understand you. And I do too. I feel that too. But right now, we just need to be friends. And man, I hit my hand on the table. I said, I don't need more friends. I said, I got too many friends. I can't return text messages. I forget who called me. I can't go to the grocery store without having 4 conversations. I need a wife. That was the wrong thing to say.
Oh my goodness. This is the Elevation Room, a space where we unpack life's hardest moments and the impact that they have on our faith, family, and fulfillment. I'm your host, Dustin Lale, and each episode we share real stories of resilience and breakthrough to inspire you to keep moving forward, rooted in your purpose, living on purpose, and walking with purpose. This journey we call life is not meant to be done alone. So click subscribe or the follow button now, settle in, and join us as we go into the Elevation Room. In this episode, I had the privilege of talking with my friend Brady. I know you will be blessed by this conversation because we go into what it was like when he got radically saved and heard the voice of God, and God showed him who his wife would be shortly thereafter. But the problem was, he didn't really approach it the right way, and it led to a period of 3 years with no contact with this girl he knew was supposed to be his wife, but the timing was just not right. Through that process, Brady had to wrestle with frustration, with some anger towards God, and really learning how to trust God in the process. Going through what felt like depression and knowing that he had to trust God indefinitely, even to the point where God challenged him and said, if I never gave you a wife, if I never gave you children, would you still serve me? So if you are in a season where you are feeling some frustration towards God, maybe even some anger and resentment, and don't understand that you've heard God's voice, but things aren't matching up with what he's told you, stick in this episode because you will see how God worked in Brady's life and how the timing of God is always better than our own. So with that, I hope you enjoy and are blessed by today's conversation. Well, welcome back to the Elevation Room. Our guest today is a husband, a father of 3 now, just recently. Congratulations.
Yeah, 2 months.
Brady, welcome to the Elevation Room.
Thanks for having me, man.
Man, it's an honor.
I think about a month ago or so, you texted me, and I was driving, and man, the second I saw the text was like up on my truck, I read it on the screen. I was like, what a great idea. I'm in.
I love it. I love it. Well, I appreciate having you here. I'm excited to, hear your story in more detail. We've been friends for a while, known each other for a while, but really have had few in-depth conversations.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons I even started doing this was for these moments right here.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, the man I know sitting in front of me is one of the most genuine people I know, one of the most authentic. My wife and I regularly talk about you and Angel in that regard of any interaction we have. Just you can feel that you really care about the people you're interacting with.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
But I know, it may not have always been that way. And so help us understand the road that you've walked and where your story really begins.
Yeah. Well, first, man, thanks for the compliment.
Absolutely, man.
That's something that is accurate, man. I value people, and dude, I just love people.
Yeah, you
I'll
do.
tell you a funny story about that in a little bit. But so, born in Houma, Louisiana, and we were talking about this yesterday. If Houma was the same place that it was all of my young life,
Yeah.
dude, we'd figure out a way to be there.
Okay.
It was just a cool. It was a small town in a sense, but when I would travel or talk to people and they would talk about, the bad side of a small town, I didn't know what they were talking about. It was just a great place, man.
Wow.
Everybody prided themselves on a hard work ethic and family and clean, good fun,
Yeah.
Even when kids would, get into trouble, it wasn't that bad of trouble, great spot.
Yeah.
And it's just different, man. It's
Okay.
different now. but I'm so proud of where I come from. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. So, born and raised there. Great parents. My dad, Pat, mom, Dawn. Um, they they were divorced when I was 18 months old,
Okay.
and they and I see it more now that I'm a parent, but I always noticed it. Dude, they co-parented exceptionally well. Um, I never saw them argue. Uh, never, never spoke bad of each other. Even at 6 years old, I was cutting my mom's grass, and my dad would take a tie wrap at both houses and tie it loosely around the lawnmower throttle to where I couldn't hold it, the lever down and start the lawnmower.
Ah,
So I'd take the tie wrap and then I'd go put a foot on it and start it.
nice.
Down to he built himself both houses, exact same floor plan, two different neighborhoods.
Oh, wow.
He even built the bedroom furniture because he didn't want me to wake up and feel like I was in two different places all the time.
That's very intentional.
100%.
Wow.
Great parents.
Wow.
Great parents. And then graduated high school, and I went to Nichols for one semester, then ended up in Lafayette, Louisiana. And I hadn't left, man.
There you go.
Went to school here at UL for business management and had a blast,
Yeah.
in good ways and not good ways. We'll get into that. But that's what brings me here.
When did you meet Angel?
I met her my first senior year.
First senior year.
Dude, I was so good at it, I went another time.
All right, couldn't help yourself, huh?
Couldn't help myself. Dude.
Okay, what
Yeah.
led to that? Was it a scheduling error, or I know
Oh,
for Bethany,
dude.
she got bad advice from a counselor and ended up having to extend her a semester because of the way certain credits fell.
Yeah, so I'll usually joke and say I party too much as the first major. That's kind of true. That's not really the reason.
Yeah,
I
okay.
changed my major too many times.
Okay.
I started off in nursing. I don't know what I would have been a terrible nurse. So
I don't know, but you love people well,
I
so
do.
that part you
I
had
do.
covered.
There's so many other areas that would have been like, your pain is what? Come on, man. But then I switched to criminal justice and come from a military family, a lot of Marine Corps guys, Army guys,
Okay.
Air Force, Navy, the whole gamut. And I had a cousin that I called uncle that was a narcotics cop. And I remember hearing a story of a pretty rough drug bust in a rural town in Mississippi. And he wasn't even working there, but it was such a big deal. They didn't have enough to take down what was going on. And he shows up at our house with cakes and all kind of stuff. He's like, dude, I don't have enough room for all this. So he's giving it out to family. I said, where'd you get all this? He said, he gets choked up. He said, man, the amount of moms that when we got these guys out of their neighborhood were coming out with cakes and cookies. They were just so grateful that their kids could play outside again.
Wow.
And man, I just wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So did that for a little bit, 2 years actually. So not a little bit, 2 years of criminal justice. And then, there's a movie line, and this kind of leads to meeting Angel, but there's a movie line, and it's a guy riding in his car, and he's driving through a neighborhood, and he says, man, people want to grow up, and some kids want to be doctors, some kids want to be policemen, firemen. Man, not me. I grew up, I wanted to be a husband and a dad, and that's how I was.
Awesome.
And I just couldn't bear the thought of having a wife and kids worried about me not coming home.
Mm.
And so I changed my major to business, which was a more natural fit,
Okay.
and tons of respect for those guys out there
Yeah. It's a
who
sacrifice.
do that and the families,
Mhm.
golly, I get goosebumps thinking about it,
Yeah.
but so that's how I wound up an extra year.
Okay.
But you want me to get into the angel
Yeah. How'd you meet
situation?
Angel? Where'd that? Where? How?
Yeah. So, growing up, I was religious, and I was very devout, and man, I learned a lot in that religion, and in knew a lot of great people, and have nothing bad to say, but I was good at checking boxes and I didn't know God. And when I was about 17, I had really asked a lot of questions that you might not, maybe you weren't supposed to ask.
Yeah.
And I was not upset. Nobody hurt my feelings in church. I
Uh-huh.
wasn't hurt in church, nothing like that. But I just didn't believe God was real. I just really didn't. And I kind of equated it to the Santa Claus thing. It's like, hey, look, I never wanted to ruin that for kids when I was little. Even once I knew, I was like, man, I'm happy that they're excited. That was a great feeling.
Mhm.
That's how I felt about God. So, man, I picked up any atheist book I could pick up, Hitchens, Dawkins, all that stuff. And that was it. And then one day, um, man, I just get radically saved at church. Miss Belay, Aaron's mom, a friend of
Okay.
ours, Aaron,
Yeah.
she would always invite us to church. And boy, we needed it. But she was so sweet. She
Yeah.
wasn't pushy. And then one day I said, I think I'm going to take her up on that. And so I went and I just got radically saved. I heard the voice of God, uh, and I didn't know what it was.
Wow.
And it wasn't audible, but I had never read the Bible.
Hmm.
And when the pastor was saying, that he wanted to pray for, whoever's in there that needs prayer or slip up your hand, I just thought to myself, I'm not slipping up my hand. This dude's crazy. And I heard in my thoughts, super loud, if if you deny me and you're ashamed of me on earth, then I will deny you at the gates of heaven. And it startled me. And so I just shot my hand up before I realized what I was doing. And that turned into me walking down, and the guy, I love him to death to this day, was Pastor Todd. But I didn't even know you called him a pastor, you
Wow.
know? And he just prayed with me, and man, God broke some things off my life, some that I didn't know needed to be broken, and some that I couldn't break myself for years. And one of those things was I had a promiscuous past.
Hmm.
And I realized that the type of woman I wanted to marry would never want a guy like that. And there was no undoing that. And when I got saved, I didn't feel like I hadn't done those things. But for the first time, I realized, and it's like all in one moment. I didn't just realize what I just mentioned about a girl, not a good woman, not maybe not wanting those things, but I realized the magnitude of having sex with people that weren't my wife, and how I could never offer that to her. And in that moment, I mean, when I say a moment, all of this in probably a second,
Hmm.
but the deepest understand, like an instant download, and it grieved me even more. I felt like like a hopelessness, and right away, I felt clean. Like I felt like God had just cleaned me up, and I had hope
Mm.
that I could find that person. And so I meant it when I said it. I said, God, I'm not going to look. And I don't trust myself to make that decision.
Mm.
I've made decisions on girls before. And honestly, many of them were great girls. I can't blame them. It was me.
Hmm.
But I don't trust myself to make that call. So I'm going to not look. I want you to show me my wife when the time is right. And so for a year, dude, I went home that day and I had a box of workout supplements. I don't know how this got in the bottom of that box. When I was 16, my dad bought me a Mossy Oak Bible.
Okay.
Dude, I don't think the box ever got open. It was at the bottom. I don't know why I was even looking through the supplements.
Wow.
I find this thing, I open it up. It's super late at night. And I think the first verse I read was, and I don't remember it exact, but talking about like those who wait on the Lord will sleep, will enjoy good rest or something like that and sleep peacefully. I read that verse and I believed it. And so I laid my head down, and dude, I slept like a baby that sleeps good.
Yeah, that's right.
Like a baby that sleeps good.
That's right. I know.
And
I've always wondered about that saying.
yeah, I don't, probably not the best one. But, so that led to every night for a year, people were going out and partying and stuff. And the taste, it wasn't tempting to me. The taste was gone for that. And I just devoured the Bible. I didn't know anybody else that was a Christian. I didn't know anybody. So I just read the Bible with God every single night. I started leading a Bible study in a fraternity on campus with Aaron. Um, and man, that was blowing up. And man, leadership positions in the fraternity kept opening up. And I wouldn't even want to run for them. And somebody would come and nominate me. And same was true for Aaron. And God just kept putting us in positions of influence. And we just kept leading a Bible study. So I'm with a roommate at the time who he wasn't a Christian or believer. And we're standing at the bus stop at UL. And anybody listening who's not familiar, you have to take a bus to campus, unless you're really rich and you have a pass.
Parking passes are
So that-
few and far between.
Oh boy, that's gold.
That's
you
right.
know?
That's right.
So we're standing on this bus stop, and probably between 200 and 300 yards away, I see a girl walk out. But at that far, I don't even know what she looks like. And Dustin, I'm telling you, for a year, I don't exaggerate, I didn't even so much as check a girl out for that whole year. I wasn't looking at all. And man, I saw a girl, couldn't even make out what she looked like. And I just turned to my roommate and said, dude, I think I just saw my wife. And like, I don't know how I stayed standing. It was like that obvious.
Wow.
And, but she's way over there. Well, man, she's getting closer, closer, closer. She comes to the same bus stop I'm at. And there was multiple stops, stands right in front of me. So being smooth like I am,
Of course.
forgot that I had a Greek men's Bible study card in my hand. So I'm like, I got to introduce myself. So I said, hey. And she turns around, and I said, hey, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Brady. And when I went to shake her hand, I had that card. So I handed it to her. I'm like, oh, I don't know if you're interested in this type of stuff, but if you are, I'd love to have you. And she looked at it and kind of was like, okay, thanks. And I didn't know why she said that until later,
Because
That's
it
what
was
I
a
handed her.
men's-
Yeah,
a
like
men's-
come join a bunch of frat guys for a Bible study. She probably thought, what is this dude talking about?
Hilarious.
So she gets on the bus, and they had just implemented a rule that you cannot stand while the bus is moving anymore. You used to be able to. So if there's no available seats, you got to get off. So I get on, and man, there's no seats. So I'm getting off, and a guy like to knock me over. Must have been late for a class and forgot. He jumps up, and so I'm like, oh, awesome. So I sit down. Well, she's right there. It's like, oh, hey. So we talked the whole time back to where we were headed. We didn't know where, so we end up at the same apartment complex. So we say the awkward goodbye in the parking lot. Hey, it was great to meet you. And we walking on two sides of the parking lot, same
Heading in the
direction.
same direction.
So there's 6 buildings at this apartment complex. 5 of them, so 4 breezeways per building, 4 stories high. 5 of them are all by themselves or all with each other. And then there's one across a little bridge by itself. It's like the 6th building. And she starts walking across the bridge. And I'm walking behind her. So she kind of stops and she turns around. She's like, are you following me? I said, no, I swear I ain't following you. I'm not. I know. That's weird you'd think that. She's like, well, okay, where do you live? And so I said, I live in 6232. She was like, really? I said, yeah. She said, I'm 6222. So she was right below me.
Oh, wow.
I said, how long you been there? She's like, oh, 3 years.
Wow.
I'd been there 4. Now, we used to throw parties, huge parties, and we would invite everybody in the apartments around us so they didn't call the cops.
Mm-hmm.
If they were having fun, they wasn't calling.
Nobody was calling right.
We never invited them, and nobody knows why.
Wow.
And so at the time, I was training at Gladiators with Aaron and some guys, and we used to like help with cardio kickboxing classes, you know. Well, one of the classes that I helped with, uh, two of Angel's roommates would go. So I show up at Angel's apartment one day, and they're just, oh, that's Coach Brady, you know, da 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 da, and super small world. So that was the introduction, and then probably not the wisest thing, just overzealous, you know. And we might have been hanging out for 3 weeks, and I just thought it was a great idea to tell her, hey, look, I've been needing to tell you something. Okay, what's that? I said, look, I just, no rush, no pressure, but, you know, God told me that you my wife. So, in true angel fashion, you know, she says, oh, wow. Okay, well, you can go. And I laughed, you know, I said, oh, that's hilarious. She's like, no, no, seriously, you probably should leave.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Okay.
So I left. Um, and to condense a lot of the story that follows, um, the Sunday before I met her, she had just told her mom that she wanted to really press in and get closer to God, and she was going to look for a Bible study. So next day, here's some guy handing her a Bible study card
To a men's Bible
to a
study.
men's Bible study. She forgot that detail when she told her
Yeah,
her fault.
it's all good.
So you know, there was some of that kind of did catch her attention, but she was also coming out of a relationship.
Mm.
And she's a wise woman, even young. You know, back whenever we met, she had a wisdom about her. You know, she was an old soul right away, and she was right at the time, and she just knew, like, hey, it's not the right time. She didn't want to give me any more detail than that because she didn't want to stoke the flames, you know.
Right.
And so we try to avoid each other. Well, I would go to ride with a friend instead of take the bus. She's riding too, or it was just nonstop running into each other. So we really couldn't avoid each other. And she wanted to be friends, and I just couldn't be friends.
Yeah.
It was sorry, you know, I can't unsee you the way, and I'm not gonna say it, but it is what it is.
The way God showed me you were.
Just it is what it is, you know.
Yeah.
So it was kind of an off and on, man. When we'd hang out every other day or every couple days, you know, for a couple weeks. And dude, it was so natural. We just had great conversation, and just it was such a good fit. And I would just randomly, just impatient, you know, I'd randomly, hey, like, come on, you can't tell me you're not feeling this. And she would, I am, but what I said stands. It's not. I didn't know she was just coming out of a relationship. So all this stuff, you know. So this goes on. I said 3 years, mainly probably close to a year and a half, 2 years, and then she graduates first.
Okay. Look, but let
Yes,
me
sorry. Yep.
interject here, because what I find very interesting is several things, but you lived in the same place for years,
Yep.
never saw each other, and really no reason not to when y'all are throwing parties, inviting everybody. But God, knowing who you were at the time,
Yep.
knowing the plans he has for y'all and had for y'all, almost protected each of you in
100%.
in that way. And my story is very similar to yours.
Really?
And I call it drug of choice was
Uh-huh.
women. You know, I
Yep.
didn't do actual drugs. I didn't really drink any of that kind of stuff, but promiscuity was my drug of choice. And I remember when I got saved, unfortunately for me, it wasn't as instant in
Yeah.
that moment of the weight of what just happened.
Mhm.
But I also had met Bethany. You know, I met her, and then a couple of weeks later, she invited me to church, and that's how I got saved.
Wow.
But in that moment, I also knew she was my wife. But I was just addicted to where I was at. And I was at
Uh-huh.
LSU, she was at UL.
Yep.
And in my addiction, I remember there was a point where I was sitting in our little condo with my roommates, and I said, if another girl walks through that door, I want you to take my shirt off and take your belt and just whip me
Yeah.
because I felt like I couldn't stop,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah. Break me out of this.
That's right. Years later, God showed me I was trying to take the stripes of my own sin, take
Dude,
the
wow.
punishment
Yeah.
for my own sin, and I had no concept of that at the
Wow,
moment,
yeah.
But in God's faithfulness, He, kind of a lot of what it seems to be, oh, hey, I know you're the one, but then going and doing all these other things. In that, Bethany was, hey, we can't be dating, right now, because I have a list. She had a list of
Mhm.
I don't know, qualifications is the right
Yeah,
word,
like
but attributes.
non-negotiables, you
Yeah.
know?
And I didn't feel any of those,
Yeah.
as man after God, all these wonderful things because she was raised in a Christian home. And I fit none of them. And so she, in her wisdom, was like, hey, we need to keep an arm's distance away. And then I'm on this side saying, but I love you. And, we got to a point where she was like, well, I love you too. And because I love you, like, we can't be any closer than this kind of thing. Um, but it was I mean, first 6, 8 months was rough.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of back and forth and, high emotions, knowing that I'm still living in sin, even though I'm saved, but hiding it from her. But,
Mhm.
God's protecting her and all of these different dynamics that
Yeah.
were, you can't make that kind of stuff up, but you
No.
can't help but look and say, God, thank you for your mercy,
Dude, and the lessons that you learn through that,
Yeah.
and we'll get more into that, but just the depth of what God is capable of doing for you
Hmm.
and willing to do for you,
Yeah,
like a
absolutely.
like a good father,
Yeah.
Um, the discipline's not enjoyable in the moment, but
Right.
man, it produces the right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I just wanted to kind of share that a little bit
I'm glad you did. I didn't
because
know that dynamic.
that's right. I didn't know, not knowing the depths of your story either.
Yeah.
I found that very interesting for sure.
So it kind of culminated. She graduated first,
Okay.
and we met at a coffee shop. And I just kind of gave the ultimatum. I'm
Okay.
like just trying to
So up to this,
push
y'all are
this
kind of hanging out,
back and
awkward,
forth, and just
still seeing each other, but not really dating or anything.
sometimes like a month go by, 2 months we don't talk,
Okay.
or whatever. So it's just trying to navigate all this. So we meet at a coffee shop. She's fixing to leave to go back home. She's from Luling, and so right outside of New Orleans. And I just tell her, hey, real life's happening now. Like we're graduating. Um, I'm serious. Like I want to marry you. I don't want to be with nobody else. And man, if you feel that way, let's just date sincerely. And she goes, I do understand you, and I do too. I feel that too. But right now, we just need to be friends. And man, I hit my hand on the table. I said, I don't need more friends. I said, I got too many friends. I can't return text messages. I forget who called me. I can't go to the grocery store without having 4 conversations. I need a wife. That was the wrong thing to say.
Oh
So
my
she
goodness.
said, well, I don't know what to do. But if that's how you're going to be, then I'm going to have to go. I said,
Wow.
all right. So I told her, I said, listen, I cannot, this has to be a clean cut. This is the strongest I've ever felt about somebody. It's not even a feeling. Like, I don't know how to explain it.
Probably more of a knowing.
It's like that. And I told her, I said, as confident as I was when I got saved, that's how confident I am that I heard God say that. I'm not wishful thinking here. I can't just be friends. So I got to make a clean cut, no contact, nothing. So, dude, for 3 years, I didn't know where she lived, deleted numbers, no mutual friends on any social media, total wash. I didn't
Wow.
know if she was married, dude. I had no idea if she was
Wow.
or not.
And that was a choice y'all made at that moment. Hey, 3 years. I mean, y'all didn't have a timeline, but hey, we're clean cut.
Dude,
And you
that
said,
was
I
me.
can't have anything to do with you
Yep.
if we're not doing this.
Yep.
Wow.
So I end up So much had happened during that time, but um, the large majority of that was my dad and I were going to start a business or expand one of his locations. And to really condense a lot of that, I ended up feeling like God was calling me into ministry. It didn't make any logical sense. There wasn't a need at the church I was at. So I just went anyway.
And where were you at mentally with women, with her, with
Oh, dude, I was super depressed about it, about that, you know. But women in general, I just kind of, back to square one. God, you're gonna show me when it's time,
mhm,
And so, but I was in the early stages of being depressed about it.
mm,
Um, but I still had a little bit of frustration emotion to kind of fuel me.
yeah.
So I ended up being a pastor on staff at a church in town, great church, and man, that was the hardest 3 years because being a single pastor is rare, and being a young single pastor, it comes with certain things. A lot of times other people hear from God that you're supposed to be their husband.
Kind of like she might have been feeling about you telling
Probably
her.
right, exactly. So I got a little taste of my own medicine, a little bit, but also, man, every women's conference, men's conference, Valentine's Day service, you're there in the front row, dude. I did probably 30 weddings. I was the best man in 5 weddings in 1 year.
Wow.
It's like everything I wanted was like all around me. And it was a challenging time because, I would go to God and say, God, you said no good thing would you withhold from me. And you said that if I seek first the kingdom of God, all else would be added to me. You said a man who finds a wife finds a good thing. And you showed me my wife and you withholding her from me.
Yeah.
And what are you doing? And I know what he was doing now.
Yeah.
But man, he took me to a point when like I said, at the church, they didn't have an opening. So I just went and said, well, I don't have a job and I feel like I'm supposed to be here. And whatever you got, I'll be a janitor. I just, I feel more peace about that because I feel like God wants me here. And he said, well, we have the maintenance facility director. He needs a helper. I said, well, I'll take it. So it was a minimum wage job. I'm trimming hedges outside, changing light bulbs, cleaning toilets if they need, or helping
Hmm.
fix them. And during that time, man, it wasn't making any money. I was living in Aaron and Charity's backyard. They had like a mother-in-law suite behind their house. And one my favorite verse in the whole Bible is 1 Samuel 16:7, and that is, um, God doesn't look at men the way that men do. Men look at the outward appearance, but it's the Lord that looks at the heart.
Hmm.
And I always was very pure hearted to God. And I never tried to hide anything from him because I knew I couldn't anyway. And nobody had taught me to talk a certain way to him. My relationship and gratitude for what he did for me maintained my respect towards him. But I was always raw and honest and vulnerable. And David's one of my favorite characters in the Bible, but it's not because he was a warrior. It was that dynamic of him
Mm.
I just identify with. And nothing was off limits in a conversation. And that was a two-way thing because God, almost like a stand here like a man Job moment.
Yeah.
One evening, I'm in the mother-in-law suite. Hadn't talked to Angel 2.5 years. Didn't even know. I didn't know if she was married with kids by now or not. I had no clue. But I had prayed and fasted. I had tried to date. I couldn't get over her at all. I mean, and when I tell you, I thought about her every day. I thought about it every day.
Wow.
I couldn't get a break. And it was depressing,
Mm.
like very depressing. And every time I'd pray and fast, all I'd journal about was her. And I
Mm.
would try not to, and I couldn't come up with nothing to write.
Wow.
So I'm a maintenance facility helper at the time still. I'm living in my buddy's backyard. And I always wanted to be a husband, a dad, and I wanted to own my own business. And as silly as it was, I wanted a black F-150 FX4. My childhood best friend had that when it first came out, favorite truck. And I'm looking out the window, and my best friend, Aaron, and his wife are holding my godchild, new baby.
Mm-hmm.
He just got home driving his black
Black
F-150
F-150. I
FX4,
remember when he had that thing.
just starting his own business.
Yeah.
And God asked me, do you envy that? And I knew God would know, you know. And I said, not 1 second. By coveting, the way that I see that is, coveting means if I could take it from them and they couldn't have it, and I could, I'd do it. And I said, if I had to give it up forever for them to have that, I would do it. Man, it still chokes me up.
Mhm.
It was. This was one of the most powerful nights I've had with God. And he said, and then he, no conversation was off limits. So he said, if I never gave you a wife and kids, business, a black F-150, your own house, and you stayed a facility maintenance helper the rest of your life, living in this mother-in-law suite, would you still serve me? And the truth is, I knew what I wanted to say. I knew what I was supposed to say, but I didn't know if I could say it from a pure heart.
Wow.
So I told God that. I said, God, I know what I want to tell you. I know what you deserve for me to feel. I don't feel the opposite, but I can't tell you from a heart that you'll know is purely telling the truth. I need more time. And he gave me more time. And then one night, same scene, I'm watching the same thing. And I just started thanking God for blessing Aaron and Charity from a sincere place, you know. And I was already happy for them, and I had
Right.
answered that first question the way I did. But I was really just, I'd forgotten about myself for a second, and I was just so happy. You know, Hosea was learning to walk, and you know, just enjoying watching that, and trying not to be obvious in the window like a weirdo, you know, you know. So, and then it hit me that question, and I looked up at, you know, up in the sky, and I said, you know, God, I got an answer for you, and you know my heart. I said, whew, man. I said, if you never gave me those things, and if you took everything else you ever gave me away, I still wouldn't deserve just you saving me. I'll serve you the rest of my life. And man, I just hit my knees, and it's probably silly hearing it, but it meant something at the time. I took my shirt off just like Job, you know, and I said, man, like Job said, you know, naked I came into this world, naked I'll go out. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And man, it was such a powerful moment. And I felt God say, you my son, in whom I'm well pleased. And so, man, a week later, I'm in the gym, and Angel, her best friend, a sweet girl named Sam, and I hadn't seen her. I've been going to the same gym for years, you know, never saw her ever. Well, I see her. I'm like, oh man, I gotta ask. So I said, hey, I, I, I've been thinking about maybe reaching out, but I don't even know if she's married. Like, I don't want to reach out and she be married with kids,
Right.
you know? Golly. And so she said, I think it'd be safe for you to reach out. I said, all right. So, man, I thought about it a long time. And when I say a long time, I mean like 3 hours. So I texted her and I said, hey, I know this is going to come as a surprise, but if, and I know, you know, I skipped a couple of parts. I know we didn't have the best clean break there, but if you would consider just a one-time in-person talk, I just would like to talk with you. And when I got saved, I was super zealous, but the convictions that God had put on me initially, so that I didn't go back, was things like, you know, country music. One day we would be riding in her car, and she's got a country song on. I listen to country music all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but at the time, man, I turned it off. I was like, you got to, we got to go back, man. I ain't going back down that road. And so there were silly things in a way, that I just put this weight on her that I found out later, she wasn't convinced that she was saved.
Mm.
I had put so much, and I wanted to mainly, and I told God from an honest heart, what I want to see her again and marry her, of course, but I won't bring that up if you give me one chance. I just want to apologize that I did that to her. And so she said, yeah, that'd be all right. I said, I don't even know where you live. She said, I live in Baton Rouge. I said, okay. I said, how about tonight? So she said, are you sure? I said, look, if you just give me a thumbs up, I'm on my way right now. I'm just driving around the block in case. So she's like, LOL, goodness gracious. Okay.
Didn't give her any hints. You were slowing down any, huh?
Not at all.
I love it.
So we get to a Starbucks, man, and to wrap up the story, we got there probably 6 o'clock. I think I left that Starbucks at 3 a.m. We
Wow.
talked the whole night, early into the morning, and then I just drove straight back. Was still pastoring. I drove straight to church. By the time I got there, I needed to be there in an hour anyway. I didn't sleep, and I knew right then and there I'm not. And I didn't bring up wanting to marry her. There were some times I almost did, and I did.
Thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Lord. And she reached back out to me, and just to tell me, hey, thanks. It was great seeing you. I'm really glad you texted me. I missed you. And so we met up a couple more times, and picked up right where we left off. And 3 months into that, we got engaged.
Okay.
And then 3 months after that, we got married, dude.
Wow.
And that was 7 years ago.
So a 3-year, no contact, nothing, and then God does a work in your heart as you're pursuing Him, trying to keep a pure heart before Him. And then just like that, best friend comes,
Yep.
or you see her at the gym, just like that. You reach out, meet that night,
Yep.
and then 3 months later engaged.
Oh, yeah.
And 3 months later married.
Dude,
Wow.
every weekend, when we looked at dates to get married,
Mhm.
every weekend for the whole year was booked for the first DJ we called. And then we call another vendor, the cooks,
Yep.
caterers. And man, they were booked every weekend. And then we noticed, oh, dang, the only weekends they're not booked are the same weekend. Wow, how about that? Well, we found a venue that would work for us, but it was booked every weekend except that one day.
What?
Dude, the photographer, the florist, every weekend was booked. It was so last minute, except that one day.
Wow.
So we got married July 21st.
That is awesome. So
Yep.
God, you can't tell us any other way because you just made it happen. What I'm interested to know, you didn't bring up marriage the first time, and then you met a few times. How did that come back around, considering the
Yeah.
past of you being so forward, I'll say, and hey, I know you're my wife. I know you're my wife. We don't talk for a couple of years.
Yep.
We get back together, and I don't bring it up.
Yeah.
How did it come around? Because 3 months is
Yeah, sure.
quick.
That's a great question. I think that the difference in where she was so drastically different. Like it was emotionally healthy, and she wasn't unhealthy, just wasn't a good time. And then where I was in that, look, I done had my will beat out of me.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I mean it this time. I'm not going to keep pressuring it. I think all of that stuff, some of it even unspoken, was obvious. And I think we were both in a position to where, like, hey, we both been knowing this,
Mhm. Yeah.
So, and when for the 3 years we hung out, man, that quality of conversation, the depth of conversation and understanding and just all this kind of stuff had already been talked about,
Mm.
which made that tougher.
Yeah.
It's like, how you gonna get better than what we're having here?
Yeah.
So yeah, man. But man, God was just he was faithful in a lot of ways. He used all those things to teach both of us individually a lot of lessons, and we got a chance to really get rooted and grounded in Him separately.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, I guess the better way to say it is, I really sought after God to be the man He wanted me to be,
Mm-hmm.
and she sought for the same reasons to be the woman that He wanted her to be, and He's still doing that work. But when we got to a spot to where it's like, okay, cool, now you need a helpmate for the rest of that work.
Mm.
And I showed you who it was because you asked me to. But my timing takes priority.
Yeah.
And now you see why.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of I'm glad he did it the way he did it.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say? Because you just talked through it a little bit high level, but if you had to say this was the biggest lesson I learned through that period,
Ooh, that's a good question.
how would you verbalize that?
If I'm climbing a tall ladder and I'm trusting you to hold it, I don't have to trust you very long. But the longer you gotta trust somebody, the harder it can get. And I think if you have an end goal in mind, like an end date, like I'm gonna trust God with this until this day.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard,
Yeah.
but when you're just willing to live your life trusting Him, then the time frame's not a pressure builder, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And so I guess the lesson would be, um, just trusting God's process, man.
Yeah.
And honestly, ever since then, every other process and scenario in life has been the lessons I learned regarding what it is to really trust God indefinitely. Um, it's not always easy, but it's easier. I know the blueprint. You know,
Yeah. I love that. Something that is always, I say always, has been a challenge for me is recognizing or being okay, if you will, with life being a journey,
yeah,
right? Because as I like to think of myself as a high achiever,
hmm,
by the grace of God, and not that I have all these major accomplishments, just internally, like
sure.
I'm not okay with things not being how here I know they can be in
I'm
a
the
lot of
same way.
ways.
Yep.
Um, but recognizing that, whether it's this goal or, because things like husbandry or not husbandry, that's animals, but, being married,
Yeah.
having kids, there's not like an end destination,
Right.
of,
That's
of
right.
this goal, this finish line that you cross per
No.
se, in the grand scheme of things, but being okay with, hey, the goal is the journey, like
Right.
the relationship with God, the relationship with our spouse, the relationship with our children. That is the journey.
That's
That is
right.
the ultimate journey in this thing that we're called life, second to our relationship with the Lord, of course.
Yep.
But sometimes that's tough,
Yeah.
mentally
Yeah.
to, juggle in a lot of ways. Oh, I feel like I should be doing this, or I know it could be here, or whatever. I could be doing this better with, hey, this is the journey,
Yep.
it's okay. Like, enjoy the process.
Correct. And it's funny you say that. Um, Man, it's funny in certain areas of my life, I've always enjoyed the journey,
Mm-hmm.
but in that area, like I was so ready to achieve. Oh, I got the wife
Mm.
now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which to that could be broken down into coming from a home that when my mom and dad, something else they did really good, really well was, as- you know mom, as a woman was more natural at this, but my dad was a natural. We would barbecue together, just me and him on the back porch. It was kind of like our thing. We
Mm.
cooked a lot together, and he would always just affirm me and stuff since I was a little boy.
Wow.
He'd always say, "Brady, you a leader, son." I heard that all my life. I believed it, and he would always tell me, "Man, one day you're gonna meet your wife, and one day you're gonna experience something that your mom and I weren't able to give you. And he would get choked up. He's like, and I can't wait for that day.
Wow.
He said, you're gonna wake up and Brady, a man can build a house. My dad, yeah, he can weld. He was a really good manual machinist for years. He's built over a dozen houses from the slab on up. Good custom work. And but he said, we can build houses, but we can't make a home.
Mm.
Only a woman can do that. And I never got to let you experience what that was like. But you're gonna get married, and the first day you wake up at your house, you're gonna recognize, man, this is a home. Dude, we get back from the honeymoon. I wake up and I forgot about that, and I just got married. And I woke up, and the first day I look over at Angel, and man, I just felt something, and it was just a peace. And I remembered him saying that,
Wow.
So kind of a rabbit trail. I don't know
I
why
love it.
where
I
that came
love
from,
it.
but yeah, I guess they did a good job at that.
Yeah.
Preparing me and never hiding their faults and their failures, and
Mhm.
then sharing the lessons that they learned about that stuff with
Yeah.
relationships. So I don't know why I got off.
I love it. I mean, we're talking about the process, but I love that, just enjoying those moments and recognizing, hey, this is
That's
my
right.
my partner in life going
Yeah.
forward. And Lord, how can I be the best son this
Mhm.
way so that I can be the best husband and father this
Yeah,
way?
that's good.
And every step of the way, staying with a humble heart, a man after God's own heart.
Yeah.
I love, we're talking about the purity of your heart you held before the Lord, even so much so that you didn't want to answer the question
Yeah.
because, hey, I know I can't answer this in a pure heart. And the authenticity about that, again, going back to what Bethany and I seen in you since the day that we met, just that genuineness and that authenticity
Yeah.
is something that I think we all could learn from, and glean of, Lord, just like you were preparing David in the fields while he was shepherding his father's sheep, just pursuing you. You took care of the rest. I mean, he was anointed king, but didn't fulfill that promise for years and years and
Yep.
years. And there was a whole lot of process that he had to go through.
Right.
And it's always easy to say, oh, yeah, because it's in a few chapters in the
Exactly.
Bible,
Dude, that's
but
right.
living it and
Yep.
being okay with that, trusting. I love that, trusting God indefinitely. Like you
Mhm.
said, just having that lens, that filter
Yeah.
of, God, I trust you no matter what, forever. So,
And I remember why I got on that rabbit trail. I trusted God with, I got a great work ethic. I like to work, but I was raised successfully working, you know. Um, very few people I ever met in my life that, and it really comes from my dad, that I wouldn't be able to work harder. Doesn't mean I was smarter, but you might grab a dolly, I'll just pick the box up. You know what I mean? So that's
yeah,
not
yeah,
always the
yeah.
best. But point being, that process was something I was comfortable with. But because I didn't grow up with a wife, I wanted the end result.
Mm,
And I think that's what God had to break me of. Is,
mm.
hey, just like you trust me in every other area, you got to have that same amount of trust for me here too.
Wow.
And so, yeah, that's why I
I
had jumped
love
off on
that.
that.
I love
Yeah.
that, man. I appreciate it. Well, I think that's a great segue into what I like to call the ABCs of the elevation room. And the first A is advice that you would give your younger self, knowing, look where you are now, 3 kids, been married, going through that. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Just like what, my younger self, I was always in martial arts and boxing and stuff like that, and working at an early age. Just like every little practice you go to is part of a process, and um, you see the guys who are really good or really, have achieved a lot, and that didn't just happen. They had to work at that. In this context of the dating scene, if you will, if you just apply that same thing to you, like my great grandma and great grandpa, when my dad and mom were going through their divorce, they were shrimp or crab fishermen, oyster fishermen, and shrimpers down the
Okay.
and some of the most pure-hearted people. And they said this, and it applies to the answer. Um, my great grandpa told my dad, Pat, he said, Pat, he was going through divorce, having a tough time. He says, Pat, um, when we love us, when we love hard. We love hard. And it hurts because you love so hard. And my mama, great grandma said, Pat, when we are the wrong person in a season of our life, then we can become the wrong person a longer time than that. Just keep trying to be the right person. I apply that here. What I would tell myself is, hey, keep working on yourself in every area. Your strength areas, great, keep that up. But have some critical self-assessment and think, what areas could I improve on?
Mm,
What are some things that need a little work? What are some things that need a lot of work? And just keep becoming a better man.
mm,
You keep doing that, then that's the guy that God's gonna want someone to have one day.
mhm.
If you ain't that yet, then it ain't time yet.
Yeah.
And it's that applies to everything professionally. And I literally love that process in every dynamic of life now.
Mm.
But that's a lesson that I had to learn to apply everywhere, not just places I was good at.
Yeah. I
So I
love
guess
that.
that would be it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Awesome. Well, the B is books that have made the greatest impact of your life or in your life.
Man, some really good ones, and I like to read. So
Then you'd say you've read over 200 books? Wow.
an audiobook,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but probably 50-50. But love to read. Hated to read until I read the Bible.
Okay.
That opened up a whole reading thing
Mm.
for me. Uh, Obviously, I would say the Bible.
Mhm.
And for anybody that's listening, that is a believer, well, then you know why I would say that. But if somebody's not, man, I don't get extra heaven points for saying that. It just really, man, there's just so much in that. If you are gonna run into it in life, the answer's in there.
Mhm.
Um, that's just the best book
Yeah,
I read.
I would say that any of the greatest self-help books, most of the principles in them, you can find somewhere in the Bible
Yeah,
anyway, you
the
know.
the true ones.
That's
You
right.
know.
That's right.
Um, but other than that, I would theme it. Read a lot of good I call reference books.
Mhm.
If somebody's trying to do XYZ, man, this is a pretty good book on that topic. But overall, I love business. Um, I like leadership. It's kind of a common book, but Jocko Willink wrote Extreme Ownership.
Mhm.
That's just a phenomenal concept. And 75% of me was that already.
Mm.
This kind of refined just the extra mile of taking extreme ownership.
Love that.
So, Extreme Ownership, Jocko Willink, I like that book. Another one is an older book. It's called Atlas Shrugged.
I had never heard of that one. Never
Oh,
heard of
dude.
that one.
I tell somebody read the Bible first, read Atlas Shrugged out.
Okay.
It's the author's Ayn Rand. She escaped Soviet Russia in the 30s or 40s. I'm butchering that a little bit, but in the past. Um, and so she was a devout capitalist.
Mm.
And this book, it's a fictional book, but there's no words to do justice to how this person writes. To have multiple storylines down to the nuance. She was talking about fracking in the oil field in this book. Fracking wasn't invented until 20, 30 years, 40 years after the book was written.
Oh, wow.
She didn't call it that, but she describes, but the whole book is about free market and capitalism and how when you tinker with any of it, it becomes not free market capitalism
Mm.
anymore. But the story, it's a long one.
All right.
It's probably the longest book I own.
Okay.
So the
Okay.
audio book is 63 hours.
Whoa.
The
Okay.
commitment.
Yeah, no kidding.
But I'll say this: there's been a multitude of times that I'm in a businessman's office, and I'm in outside sales, and I cover a very large territory. So I have probably 600 individual accounts and probably 4,000 people that I regularly
Mhm.
see. And so a lot of these people are people who started a multi-million dollar business out of their garage 30 years ago.
Yeah.
There's times that I'll walk in and see that book on their shelf and say, "Man, you read Atlas Shrugged?" And a 70-year-old businessman turns to me like we just became best buddies, and
Mm.
he'll say, "Man, close the door. So, what'd you think?"
Oh, wow.
That happens so many times. It's that kind of book. So that would be
Awesome.
so much for lightning
I
round.
love
Sorry
it. I
about
love
that.
it.
I
Cool.
work on my lightning time frame.
No, it's all good. All good. So the C is cherished family traditions that you and Angel have with the kids and, also with the extended family.
So my wife, that's one thing I love about her. My mom's side, very, very family oriented. My dad himself values family a ton, but didn't have a whole lot of that with his upbringing. His dad was in Marine Corps, old school Marine Corps, just a rough upbringing. But Angel's family, they have tons of family tradition, and I love it. I eat it up.
Yeah.
And one of my favorites, her grandpa was an awesome man, and I'm so glad I got to meet him and got to know him. He was in World War II, and just an incredible guy.
Wow.
And he celebrated the biggest holiday for him was the 4th of July.
Mm-hmm.
And so he always did something. Everybody went there for the 4th, you know. And so I'm patriotic, man. I love our country. And so that's probably a dynamic of tradition that I like. Another cool tradition. Our kids are still young, but I think we'll implement. Um, my wife, when they were growing up, she's one of three sisters, and for Valentine's Day, they'd have Valentine's Day dinner as a family, but the grandparents would come over, and the girls, Angel and her two sisters, and the mom would cook, but the girls would serve the parents, and then they would play like old '50s music or
Yeah.
whatever, and watch their grandparents dance
Oh,
and their
cool.
parents dance for
Oh,
Valentine's
cool.
Day. So it created that. I just really put a big family dynamic into that,
Yeah.
and I just always thought that was
That's
just
a cool tradition.
yeah,
Bethany and I have been talking about doing, because for the last few years, our oldest is 6, trying to find a babysitter for Valentine's. We end up doing off days or weeks just to have someone
mm-hmm,
watch the kids so we can go and have a special dinner together.
yeah,
But more and more, we've talked about bringing it in house and getting all gussied up, tuxedos, gowns for Evangeline,
mm-hmm,
and cooking a really nice dinner and then sharing that together over candlelight with the kids
yeah,
and then having a dance with me with Evangeline and then Bethany with Asher and then Oliver when he's old enough
mm-hmm,
um, in order to kind of imitate, hey, this is how we honor one another,
yep,
we respect one another and cherish the relationships that we have. And then of course they watch us dance together, my wife and I. And so we've talked about doing that since last year, and we talked about it again this year. So I think it's something we were looking to implement. I love incorporating it with the grandparents too to see the the legacy,
yeah,
more or less,
100%, dude. And we do that. The kids love it. We have some candlelight,
Yeah.
just candlesticks. You got to buy a big bulk pack of the wax candles. But we'll do that, man. It's actually a good time. Every now and then, sporadically, we'll have like a candlelit dinner.
Yeah.
Kind of a week to week tradition. Every Friday, I'll get a steak. And I'll get like a good, nice one from the butcher,
Mm-hmm.
and then just cut it in diagonal thin strips. Dude, you'd be surprised doing that with steak how far that goes.
Okay.
Man, a buddy of mine that owns a business owner out of Houston did that one time. He had two steaks,
Okay.
and there was like 4 or 5 guys, and he cooked two thick steaks, cut them like that, and put toothpicks in them. Dude, they had leftover steak.
Wow. That's
Brother,
great.
I'm gonna take
You got
that.
to show me how to do that.
What?
Then.
Dude, people don't realize if they just grabbing bites here and there,
Yeah.
they think they ate a whole steak.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good
Yeah.
to know. Well, man, I appreciate you taking the time to come and have this conversation. For anyone listening, how can they reach out to you and connect with you if they want?
Man, I'm trying to, I don't know handles and all. I don't know what my Instagram handle is, man. But man, if all I can think of now is, man, comment on the video,
Okay.
if it's on YouTube or
Yeah.
something. Spotify has comments now, I noticed. So, yeah, if somebody wants to reach out that way or if they can get in touch with you,
Yeah.
and I'm happy to connect with any.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I
And thank
appreciate it,
you.
man.
Thank you. I really do enjoy just hanging out,
Yeah.
which is what this feels like and what it
Yeah.
is. But
Awesome.
I love that you're doing this, man. You
Thank you.
are selling this to Angel. Your demeanor, personality, um, just background, just dude, you're the perfect guy for this type of podcast.
Well,
I just thought it was
I appreciate
phenomenal.
that
It's
encouragement because
true.
it didn't feel like this. I've wrestled with God for this for too long.
Oh, bro, stop doing that.
All right, David, just obey. That's what I'm
Yeah.
gonna try to learn that lesson.
Yeah,
But
dude.
I appreciate you
What are
sharing
doing?
that. Thank
Yeah,
you
for
so
sure,
much.
man. Thank you, brother.
It's been a pleasure. Well, that's it from the Elevation Room. I appreciate y'all joining and sticking around with it. Remember, keep moving forward, living your life on purpose and with purpose, of course, rooted in your purpose. See you later.